So, what do you do when you've got a non-AC vehicle and your customer wants AC in it? Well, there's several companies out there that make aftermarket air conditioning kits. They're completely new HVAC kits. It replaces all your original equipment with a modern AC heat and defrost system. So, as you peruse the catalogs, you'll find that a lot of vehicles have made-to-fit kits, which means they researched these kits and it was deemed viable to make a kit that will directly bolt in place of all the factory equipment. Now, for your Chevelles and Camaros and Mustangs and Roadrunners and Chargers, Oldsmobile 442s, Cutlasses, they have these kits available. Many kits out there available that will bolt right in. They have new control units that set right into factory replacement. Look exactly like factory, only it's got the added controls for the modern system. Well, when I started to research this truck, I found that every company out there, and there's probably about 4 different aftermarket companies making these types of kits. Every company had a kit listed for Ford trucks from I'm going to think it was 1965 through 1979. This is a 1980 truck. So, I called up the one manufacturer that I've been dealing with for many, many years, and I've used several of their kits, and they've always worked out great, to find out if they could tell me how much of a difference there was between a 79 and an 80 Ford pickup truck, being as I am not really that familiar with these vehicles. I became quickly disappointed in their customer service because they didn't know, for one, they weren't working on a kit for 2, and when I inquired about using a 79 kit, they said, well, it's going to be 12 to 13 weeks before we can put something together and get it out to you. Now wait a minute, you are one of the biggest aftermarket AC, HVAC suppliers in the hot rodding industry, and you're going to tell me that you can't put a kit together for me in less than 12 weeks? So I had to start looking around, and I looked into some more companies that were out there doing the AC kits, and the company that I came across that sparked an interest in me, and just happened to be in the same state as the aforementioned manufacturer, was Old Air Products. Now, Old Air Products has been around for quite a few years too. I've never used any of their systems. They look similar in makeup as to the other companies. Realistically, how different can they be? They all do the same function. So I got on the phone and I talked with one of their representatives, and first thing I asked was, how long does it take for you to get a kit together for me? He said, what are you looking for? I said, 79 Ford pickup, easy fit kit. Oh, we can have that out to you by the end of the week. Well, end of the week is a lot sooner than 12 to 13 weeks, and being as I'm on a tight schedule to get this vehicle finished, I figured whatever's in the kit, it's got to be fairly close to a 1980 model. So I said, okay, let me get back to you. I need to do a little bit of research and see what I need to change in the kit to make it work in a 1980 model. He said, no problem. So what I figured out was one of the big differences is in the dash. So let's take a look at this dash. We've got a plastic dash as opposed to the 79 and back models had a metal dash with a different glove box area here, different gauge package over there. The center controls were slightly different, but not too different. I think the radio was on the lower part and the heater controls were up here, but they looked basically the same. So I had some vents from another kit still here, and I knew that I could make them fit. I knew this had to be the area where the factory put the vents in for the passenger side. And the driver's side had 2 spots. We'll walk around the driver's side. Let's walk around the driver's side and I'll show you. On the driver's side, it's the same thing. There's 2 spots. There's a hole here and there's a hole here. Obviously, they are for AC vents. Not going to be a problem. We've got the area to put the vents. So I called the gentleman back at Old Air Products. I said, okay, send me your 79 kit, and I need it with the switch in the heater controls for the dual fuel tanks which this truck has, because that's originally where it was on this truck. And other companies showed a control unit with that provision there. And I also told him that if he could substitute me 2 different AC vents for the ones that come in his kit, and that would be enough changes to the kit where I could make everything else work. So that's where we are with that. We're going to make a 79 kit fit an 80 truck. So I've been playing around with the condenser. And the condenser goes in right here in front of the radiator. And the first thing that I did was I took out the instructions and I read through the condenser installation. It's pretty straightforward. You attach some tabs, some brackets on the condenser, as you can see, on each side. I don't have them on this side because that's part of what we got to do, is modify some things. And here's Ashton working on the wheels today. Say hi, Ashton.
Hey.
So the other thing, as I read through, it gives dimensions for the opening in here on the radiators, supports on the 79 back models, V8 versus 6-cylinder. 6-cylinder obviously being a smaller opening for a smaller radiator. This opening is 1.5 inches wider than the widest opening that they had up to 79. So here's where the modification starts.
Papa, I'm being in the video.
The condenser fits in there good, and the lines that go on it will work. So I can use 2 of the stock tabs and mount them as far over as I can get them on the radiator support. They'll basically hit right around in here, and that'll leave the condenser ending about here with my dryer unit down here, and that'll allow my lines, because this line here will attach to the top of the condenser, and then it goes through this bulkhead over here.
Papa,
And then there's a second line that goes through over here. Positioning it where I was just saying will allow both those lines to go through in just the right spots. So we're going to have to we'll use 2 of the original tabs. The other 2 tabs for this side, we're going to attach them, and then we're just going to weld on some extensions so that they'll mate up to the bulkhead, and then we can bolt everything in, have our lines set, drill the holes where they need to go through the bulkhead, and then we can figure out where the compressor goes. The compressor, I believe, sits right in here above the power steering pump. It comes with all the correct brackets for this engine, and then we'll be able to start routing our hoses, and then we'll work on the firewall end of it next. So the fun begins on adapting an AC kit to a truck that they don't make one for. Alright, next day, I worked at this some last night, and I got my condenser set in here. This just kind of set in loosely. I got my 2 left side brackets on. I say left side because this is the left side of the vehicle. And I've got my low pressure line that comes off the condenser installed. And my hole drilled here in the bulkhead on the radiator support. So what we're going to do today is finish up this installation, and that means I have to take my brackets for this side and I'm going to mount them on the condenser and then measure how much of a extension I need. It looks like I'll need to add maybe 1.5 inches to this bracket. Get those welded up, and then that will leave this installed. Again, I say loosely because everything's going to come back apart. And then I can set my tube that goes on the dryer and get my other hole drilled in my bulkhead. And we're going to get the brackets for the AC compressor painted so that they'll be ready to install, and then we can work on the rest of the lines as far as the lines that will run from the condenser to the compressor, and from the bulkhead fitting from the dryer that go to the firewall where the evaporator box comes through the firewall at. So we got a little bit of fabrication to do yet, and we'll get this set in here and get everything fixed up. Alright, to catch you up where I'm at with the AC installation. I've got my AC compressor bracket here painted up, and these are the two brackets that I had to modify. I just had to weld some short tabs on, and I put a little bend in them too to get the angle right. So now where we're at, I've got my hole drilled here for my other line that goes to my dryer, high pressure line, and I need to get my evaporator core set and installed, because the line that's back in here has a short hard line that, and I'm not sure if there's a flexible line that runs to the hard line or not, but I need to get my distance, or my length of the line from the radiator support to where my lines come out of the firewall back here. So the kit comes with this nice little template that's supposed to mark where you drill holes in the firewall for your lines to come through, but it's useless on this truck because the firewalls are obviously different. This here, if I actually use this and lined it up with the this angled area here on the firewall, like it has this angle on the, it's going to set my hole way over here, basically where the lines would come through, and that is like right next to the side bulkhead. So the firewalls obviously were changed from 79 to 80, so I'm having to do this on my own. I've got the dash unbolted, and I've got my evaporator box set up in here. Get some light on the situation so you can see what I'm doing. So the box, I've kind of just got it stuck in here in a position where I think it's going to work, where it'll fit at. It's been dropping down a little bit here. Excuse my camera angles here. But this box pretty much is going to sit about like that. So now I've got a mark on that firewall up in there where those tubes are, where I need to drill the hole for all those tubes to go through the firewall. So these are the steps that have to be taken in order to make a kit fit or use a universal kit in a vehicle that does not have a ready fit kit available for it. So we're going to go ahead, I'm going to go ahead and get the insulation cut off the firewall and get this box positioned better and get a marking where I want to drill my big hole and go ahead and drill. I guess the one good thing is it is metal, so if I drill it in the wrong spot, I can weld it back in.
a video?
Yeah.
But when you ready to go in the white plumber, I want to change my short.
Why?
Because I don't. The waistcoat.
Is it dirty?
It's pretty dirty.
Pretty dirty.
Yeah, pretty dirty right here.
Okay, well, we'll worry about that when it's time to go home.
Yeah, I want to wear my.
Let's catch everybody up on what we're doing here on the truck.
Yeah, I want to be in
Okay.
the video.
Okay, well, you just were. Okay, now that Ashton is done, just to catch you up where I'm at with the AC installation, I painted up the brackets for the right side of the condenser, and I got those installed. As you can see, 1, 2, that leaves the condenser sitting nice and even in there. And I've been working on getting the evaporator core in, and I was able to get a pretty good guess as to where this hole needed to be. So I marked on the inside of the firewall using the mounting bracket that goes on the evaporator case itself, and I cut my hole out using my plasma cutter. So that leaves my evaporator box mounted where it will go, and it looks like it should be pretty good as far as its placement. I shouldn't have any interference with the dash frame itself. They do have a I guess in the other trucks it sits a little lower, and there's a little bracket that they give you that attaches here that's supposed to go on the bottom of the dash, which this dash is a bit lower. It's around here. So I'll probably make a bracket that goes from here and will screw into the top of the firewall section up here, because as you can see it will droop over time. It does move. So put a bracket on there that'll help support the back side of it and mount it in there so it's not going down the road shaking like this either. Other than that, next thing I need to do, oh yeah, as you can tell I took the dash out. I just can't leave anything alone.
Papa.
Yes, Ashton.
That's oval. You can watch this video.
Okay. We're talking about the truck right now.
Okay.
I took the dash out mainly because, well, it's easier to work under the dash with it out of the way. And it wasn't really, it took me about 15 minutes to disconnect the wiring harness from everything and pull the dash out of the way. This way now too I can clean everything really good, get all the 40 years of dirt and grease and grime off the dash. And this dash has to get dyed to match the color of the new components that I bought, the door panels and the dash cap and everything that goes on this. So it'll be easier to clean it out of the cab and dye it out of the cab. I don't have to worry about overspray getting on anything. I'll have less masking to do. It just wasn't that much to pull it out, so we pulled it out. So that's where we're at. I'm going to continue on with this. I need to basically start with my compressor installation now, which will go over here. Get the bracket put in, compressor set on there, and then start figuring out where my high and low pressure lines need to run. I did find another piece of tubing. This is the piece of tube. This is the tube they give you with the kit, and it basically will connect in here to the piece that goes through the firewall, and this one will go, I think I can make this one go from here to the piece given in the kit and make it work. There was just no way, I don't know how this line was supposed to reach there on an older model Ford, but maybe it does. I don't know. But anyhow, that's where we're at, and I'll bring you back when I get some more of this finished up. Okay, I'm working on getting the compressor bracket situated. And this is another area that there are some differences from the 79 model year to the 80 model year, is with the power steering pump bracketry. So what we've got is this is our bracket that comes with the kit. It's designed to fit a 351 or a 400 modified engine, and it lines up down here with 3 bolts on the head, and then a 3rd bolt over here, which also is one of the places where the power steering pump bracket mounts. But as you can see, this bracket is right up against our water pump pulley. So that is one issue, because the bolt hole is actually right here, and there is absolutely no way to put a bolt in that. The other clearance problem I had was here. As you can see, I had to notch the power steering bracket so that this bracket would sit down enough so the bolt holes in the head would line up. I got to relieve this just a little bit more just to give it some clearance. So what I'm going to have to do is come in here, and I've already drew a line here. I'm going to cut the bottom of this bracket off, this ear, and I'm going to move it inward and bolt it in here where it would be bolted up to, and then I'll make up a piece to bridge the gap between the two and weld everything up solid. So that'll give the end of this bracket a good solid mount. It'll clear the water pump and allow me to get a bolt in it. As far as everything else lining up, this is extremely close to the pulley too. This is the tensioner for the AC belt. But this, I think I can just, if I grind a little bit on this and just relieve some of the surface on this here, which will not hurt its performance in any way, then that should be okay there. But it looks like everything will line up. I need to get a bottom crankshaft pulley with a 3rd row in it, which I'm having a hard time figuring out where to get one, because I don't deal with Fords, so I don't know where to get used Ford parts. And by the time you all see this video, I will have this done. So I will appreciate any help that comes in from YouTube land, but I'll probably have it figured out by then. So I'm going to get back to work on this. I'm going to relieve my brackets some more. I'm going to go ahead and cut this one and get it bolted in, make my adjustments there, and I'll bring you all back once I get everything situated. Alright, I got my bracket all modified the way I need it. As you can see, what I did is I cut that ear off, and then I needed a little spacer in there. I don't know if you can see that down in there. But I put a little spacer in there just to keep it out from the angle of this other bracket. And then I bolted that in, and then I set the rest of the bracket in and bolted it in. And then I found a piece of steel in my scrap steel bucket that I keep, and cut it to the size, and I just set it in there and put 4 tacks on it to hold it. Now I'm going to remove the bracket and weld it on the bench so I can get some nice beads laid down. I'll weld this side, the bottom side, and the inside. So it'll have 4 good welds on it that'll keep this bracket good and steady. And here's the modified bracket. Welds here and here. Come around the other side. I did the same thing on this side. Don't look at those 2 welds. Those are my tack welds. But that should be good and strong to hold that bracket where it needs to be. And I welded my spacer to here, so I'm not trying to fumble around and hold that spacer while I'm installing this bracket. So I'm going to go ahead and get this repainted, and then I can get this installed permanently. And then I'll be able to set my compressor on here and start routing my AC hoses that attach to the compressor. Okay, we repainted our bracket. Paint has dried overnight, and I have reinstalled the bracket, and everything went in just how it should have. So I go ahead and set the compressor on the bracket now, so I can start mocking up where my hoses need to run and get those cut to length and add my ends. So I've got one laid on here, and this is the low pressure line that comes off the compressor. This will be the suction line, and this has to loop around to the other side where the line comes out of your evaporator core. My other line is going to come off the compressor here, and I haven't decided if I'm just going to make it a short run here, because it has to go in to our fitting that comes off of the condenser core. I may just make it a short run here, or I could bring it looped around and bring it in more of a straight run here. I'll have to see how everything wants to lay in there. They give you plenty of hose. This is the hose here. It's a good length of hose they give you, so you got plenty of hose to run your lines where you need to go. Now these hoses only come with one end crimped on, and they send a bag with various different fittings, and this is one of the fittings here. I've got it set on this tube where the hose has to go, and you have to have a special crimping tool to attach these to the rubber lines. So this line is going to loop around the back of the engine. I'll have a couple of P-clamps that I'll hold it up here on the firewall with, so it'll be held up and in place, and then I'll cut it to length, and you just slip it inside of here, and I've got a special tool to crimp those with. If you don't have one available, you can get all your lines laid out and cut to length, and then take them to an AC shop in your local area, and they can crimp all those lines for you. Alright, I've got my 3 flexible lines cut to length, and they're ready to be crimped for the final installation. And this is the tool that I bought many years ago that I use to crimp the ends of these lines with. So basically your AC hoses come in 4 different sizes. You have a size 6, 8, 10, and 12. And the size of the hose is usually stamped on the hose. This, as you can see, is a size 10. And you have, if you're going to do custom hoses, you can buy an assortment of these fittings. Now this kit came with a few fittings with it. This is a 45 degree, I believe it's a number 10 fitting. And this shell slips down over the end of the hose, just like this one is here. You can see it's got a smooth shell to it. And after you install it in the crimping tool and use the crimping tool, it comes out like this. So it just crimps the shell around the hose and keeps it from coming off the inside of the tube. So you have a nice tight seal for your Freon to flow through. So I'm going to go ahead and get my tool set up in the vise. I'll go put the camera on the tripod, and I'll show you how I go about crimping up these lines. Okay, so I get my crimper clamped in the vise, and it has a pin. Pull the pin out. I'm going to retract the clamping device, and I find my collar for the corresponding hose that I'm doing. I'm going to do the number 10 hose first, so I'm going to find the number 10 collar. Collar has 10 on it, so you just take 1/2 and put it in each half of the crimping tool. Like so. And I'll take my hose. It's important to make sure that the hose is seated fully up inside. There's a little hole here that you can see the hose in. Just make sure your hose is covering that hole, and then just place the hose inside the crimping tool. Now you want to, when you put it in here, you'll want to make sure that your collar is about 1/8 of an inch up from the bottom side of the sleeve. close up my jaws, put the pin back in, and then close, wind in the jaws, and I'll use a 3/4 inch socket on my ratchet to just squeeze it in. Now there's a small line on the crimping tool that tells you that your jaw is in far enough for a tight crimp. So once you get it twisted in to that line, you're going to stop. Back off your jaw. And there you have completed, crimped, custom AC line. Alright, so I've got all my mechanicals on the front part of the truck finished up. Everything has been kind of set in here loosely as I've been trial fitting everything and making sure I can get everything to fit and work right. My condenser is set, lines are set in. I modified the AC bracket, got the compressor just set on here. I mounted my evaporator box to the firewall so I can get my hose length. I set all my hoses in and crimped the ends on that I needed. So everything out here is pretty much set where it needs to be. So I'm going to go through now and tighten up all my bolts, install my O-rings on my lines and tighten all those up, get my compressor bolted in permanent, get my flex hoses on, and that's going to leave from the firewall forward finished other than running power to the compressor and the high pressure switch that will go in line here. So I'm going to end this video at this point. A typical aftermarket air conditioning kit is about an 8-hour install job for a shore fit kit. Now this kit fits 79 and back trucks, so I had to modify a bunch of things to make it work in this 80 model, but it hasn't been too bad so far. So this kit is taking a little bit longer to install just because of me having to figure out what I have to do to modify the components that come in this kit to work on this truck. So stay tuned for part 2, where you'll see the dash vents get cut in the dash and all the ductwork run, wiring finished up. We're going to modify the control head to accept the dual tank switch that goes on this truck. And we'll get the system charged up and make sure everything's blowing nice cold air for when the owner comes to pick up the truck. So make sure and hit that bell notification. If you're not subscribed, do that and then hit that bell. This way when the second part of this installation video comes out, you'll be able to watch everything and see how the system turned out. Thanks for watching along, and I'll see you next time.